morning, dear students. Last week we have learned punctuation in grammar. I hope you are clear with this topic. Today, let us learn the lesson, The Fall of Troy. The first part of this lesson, which tells us about the prosperity of Troy and the war between the Trojans and the Greeks. Now let us listen to this story.
So it's going to be a very interesting lesson. So let us start by understanding a little bit about the background to these kind of stories. So this story is an epic. So what is an epic, children? An epic is a long narrative that relates the great deeds of a larger than life hero. Larger than life hero means a hero who is usually not found in real life. He is a person who has got all the qualities which are supposed to be there in a person, who embodies the values of a particular society. Now the larger than life thing we can see in our Hindi movies also. I'm sure all of you watch Hindi or Marathi or other movies. In that you will see that one hero is fighting with 10 people. And even if you shoot the hero doesn't fall down. Okay, so these kind of people are called larger than life heroes because they are not what you see ordinarily around you. They are people with some special qualities or abilities, and most of the time these kind of heroes are imaginary. Okay, so this is an epic, and the story that we are going to see now, The Fall of Troy, is also an epic. But before we go to the fall of Troy, let us look at some epics which are famous in our country, India. So we have epics like the Ramayana. So what is the Ramayana? The Ramayana is a story of Lord Shri Ram. It is a story of how Lord Shri Ram was sent into exile by his mother, isn't it? And then there Sita gets kidnapped by the cruel Ravana, and how Shri Ram along with his brother Lakshman and the Vanar Sena, of which Hanuman is a very important part, how they fight a brave battle against the demons or the Rakshasas, and how they win or they bring back Mata Sita. So this was a story of the Ramayana. The Ramayana is a very, very famous epic in India because Rama here is a larger than life character, isn't it? And Rama is also called as Maryada Purushottam Ram. That is, he is one of the best among men. Okay, he is the person, he is a man who has got all qualities which a good human being or a good man should have. So these are the epics that we have heard stories about as we were growing up. There is one more very famous epic in India, or the epic which we all have heard about, and that is the story of the Mahabharata. Now what is the story of Mahabharata? It is the story of the Pandavas, the 5 brothers, the Pandavas, the Kauravas, the 100 brothers who were cousins of the Pandavas, and Lord Shri Krishna. So there was this particular long story about the battle fought between the Pandavas and the Kauravas, and how Lord Shri Krishna sided with the Pandavas, or in fact you can say the Kauravas did not want Lord Shri Krishna on their side. They wanted Lord Shri Krishna's army. But in the bargain, the Pandavas won the battle. Okay, so from all these stories, children, we get to know a lot about how to live life, how the good always wins over the evil ultimately. In the beginning you might feel that the evil is very, very strong, but gradually you will learn to come to understand that it is the good who always win over the evil. Okay, so all these epics and all the characters from these epics also we have seen, and we have seen them as we grow up. For example, see, Lord Rama, Sita Mata, and Hanuman. All of us have heard about these characters. All of us who have grown up in India, isn't it? And now we have heard about the characters of the Panch Pandavas or the five Pandavas, Lord Krishna, Draupadi. We have heard all these stories. Now, this is all in the Indian context. Now, children who are growing up in the Western world, they also have certain epics of their own. Now, two of the epics which are very famous in the Western world are the Iliad. Okay, now this is a story on which today's lesson is based. So, the Iliad is like our Ramayana, which each and every child growing up in the Western world knows about. Okay, and the second important story which the children from the Western world or know or they have heard about as they were growing up is the story of the Odyssey. Okay, so like we have the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, the children of the Western world have grown up listening to the stories of the Iliad and of the Odyssey. Now, they just like we know about the characters of Ram, Lakshman, Sita, we know about the Kauravas, the Pandavas, Lord Sri Krishna, we know about Draupadi, we know about Duryodhana, etc. These children, they know about Hector. Now, Hector was the person who led the war of Troy or the Battle of Troy for 9 long years. So, Hector is like Lord Rama for the children of the Western world, isn't it? He's a hero who's larger than life. And then they have also heard about many stories of the adventures of Odysseus, who was the hero in the Odyssey. Okay, so this is how we have common things in our culture. The stories might be different, but epics and the heroes who are there in the epics are common, and the good things which these heroes teach us are also common. Okay, so this was about the people that we have heard about in the Indian epics and the people which the children from the Western world have heard about. See, this is also a very important character who was Achilles. His name was Achilles, and he was a very, very brave soldier. Okay, there is a story about Achilles which we will see towards the end of this lesson today. And then there was this beautiful lady who was responsible for this entire drama happening, and her name was Helen of Troy. And she was the most beautiful woman in the world, and it is because of her that the Greeks and the Trojans, now the Trojans are the people of Troy, so it was because of Helen that the Greek people and the Trojans, they fought for 10 long years. Okay, so as we go to the story, you will understand why it was because of her that they went into this battle. So children who are growing up in the Western world, they know about all these people. They know about Helen, they know about Achilles, they know about Hector, okay? They know about Menosus, so many things they know about. So let us now move into our story for today, okay? Before that, let us talk about the person who was supposed to have written the story. He is the person they believe has written this or these stories or these poetries. Okay, so his name was Homer, and he was a blind poet, and he was also someone who used to go from place to place singing or narrating stories, singing songs, reciting poems, etc., which he has written. Now, the Trojan War probably happened in the 12th century. We do not know whether it has really happened, But Homer has composed two poems, that is the Iliad and the Odyssey, in the 18th century. Now they were just oral tales, okay? The Iliad and the Odyssey, when Homer composed them, they were all oral tales, but later they were written down. After around 2 centuries, they were written down by people. Alright? So this is about the person who has written this particular story or this particular epic, that is the Iliad. Now let us look at the story of Troy and the story of how Troy fell. Troy fell means how Troy was defeated or how Troy met its end. Okay? So he was also called as the father of European poetry. Homer was called as the father of European poetry. Okay? Let us move on and let us see what the story of the fall of Troy is. So Troy is this particular place in Asia Minor. Now Asia Minor is a part of a continent. Okay, and this place was very, very prosperous once upon a time. And if you read your textbook, children, you will see all the places mentioned in the textbook over here. See the Black Sea, the Aegean Sea, all these, Asia Minor, all these things you will be able to see in your textbook, all these names. So this is regarding the location of Troy, and we are going to learn about the story of Troy. Now if you see, Troy is on a coastal side. Okay, so on one side you have water or the sea, that is the Aegean Sea. Now Troy was a very, very prosperous land. Okay, and it was a very important seaport, and you can see there were the mountains of Ida behind the city, and you could see the mountains of Ida from where Troy was, and all over the coast of the port you could see there were huge ships laden with food grains, with food, okay, with a variety of items. That means trade was very strong, and Troy was a very, very famous, prosperous and affluent city. Affluent means the people of Troy lacked nothing. They had lots of money, and the city was very, very rich, and it was very, very famous. Then let us see what happened in the story which led to the fall of Troy. That means such a prosperous city, what could have happened that Troy fell, or Troy was, you can say, defeated, or Troy met its end. Now let us also see the high peaks of Ida. So in the first image you saw the high peaks of Ida, that is the mountains of Ida, and you will also see that the fields around this place, the land around Troy was very, very fertile, and there were acres and acres of corn which people had cultivated. So people had enough to eat also, isn't it? That is why we say that it is a prosperous town, and there were lots of livestock along with agriculture. The people of Troy also had a lot of livestock. Livestock means they had ample of cows and buffaloes, and these used to graze around on the rich soil or the rich farmlands or the rich grass which grew all around Troy. And on the mountain slopes of the mountain Ida, there were these sheep and goat. That means, in short, Troy was a very, very prosperous city. Troy lacked nothing. So there was lots of business which could be done. There was lots of farming, okay, and then there was animal husbandry also in full-fledged happening. That means the people of Troy lacked nothing. They were very happy because they had enough food and everything for their survival. Then something happened which changed the fortune of the Trojans, or they changed the fortune of the city. The city was also very well protected, children. See, This was the city of Troy, and around the city of Troy there was a strong wall, and it was built in such a way that no enemy could attack them from the sea. Now I told you now, on one side they had the sea, that is the Aegean Sea. So they had built the city in such a way that there were strong walls all around Troy. See here? And the walls were very thick also. So people could sit on them, people could stand on them, people could walk around them. See? All around the city there were thick, strong walls. And the city was like a fortress. Fortress means the city was like a fort. And the people inside the city were very, very safe, and they were protected by these walls which surrounded them. And also there were the hills or the mountains or the peaks of Ida on one side. So the city was so strong that nothing could lead to its fall or its defeat. But then something untoward or something not desirable, something bad happened. What was that? The Greeks, they attacked the Trojans, they attacked the people of Troy, and they declared war against the Trojans. Now why did they do it? They did it because there was this Greek king called Menelaus. Okay, Menelaus was a Greek king, and in this picture you can see that Menelaus looks very angry, and because Menelaus became very angry, he sent his people to attack Troy. Why was Menelaus angry? Menelaus was angry because there was this particular prince of Troy called Paris. What Paris did was, Paris persuaded Helen. Helen was the wife of Menelaus. So this person, Paris, he did a wrong thing. He persuaded Helen to elope with him. Elope means to go away without permission. So you can see here, Paris is taking away Helen with him to Troy. Now naturally Helen is the wife of the king of Greece. So the people of Greece will get very angry because they have been insulted. Their queen has been taken away by someone else, and that was a reason for the war, children. They wanted to take revenge, and that is why they attacked Troy. So this was how the war of Troy began. And the war continued and continued for 10 long years. The Trojans fought hard. Trojans means the people of Troy. They fought very hard. They fought daily, but the battle did not end. The Greeks could not enter the city because of the strong walls, but the Trojans could not drive them away also. The Greeks parked in the sea, and they would come and fight with the Trojans every day. Okay, this went on for so long and so long that there were many people who were wounded. There were many people who lost their lives. Sometimes it felt as if the Trojans will win the war. At other times, people felt that no, it is the Greek who will win the war. So this war continued thus for 10 long years. Can you see how they are simply fighting and fighting over a woman? And that woman is the Helen of Troy. She was a Greek queen, the queen of King Menelaus, who was taken away by Prince Paris of Troy. This was a real reason for the war. So now you can see the similarity between our epics. So in the Ramayana also something like this had happened. I told you in the beginning of the lesson, the evil king Ravana had forcibly taken away Sita. He had kidnapped Sita. Here, they had not forcibly taken away the queen. Paris had not forcibly taken her away. She had gone with him out of her own will. But the reason was the same. Someone else's wife being taken away, and that was a reason for the battle to happen. Isn't it? Then what happened? There were so many heroes who were killed. There were so many people who were killed in this battle. For example, here you have King Menelaus who was killed, Hector who was killed, okay, Paris himself was killed, Achilles was killed, and so many other people were killed. So Hector was killed by Achilles. Who's Hector? Hector was the general who led the army for 10 years. 9 years. Out of the 10-year battle, 9 years, Hector was the commander of the army, but then Hector was killed by Achilles. Achilles was killed by Paris. Now I told you in the beginning of the lesson, when we come to Achilles' part of the story, I will tell you a small thing which is related to English language. Now Achilles was killed by Paris. How was Achilles killed? Achilles was shot in the heel. Okay, now see one more connection I will tell you between our epic and the epics of the West. Now Achilles, there is a story that Achilles could not be killed by any other means. Only if you shot Achilles in the heel, he could be killed. Now we have so many such stories in India also. For example, Hiranyakashipu was a king who could not be killed during the day, who could not be killed during the night, who could not be killed inside the house, who could not be killed outside the house, okay, who could not be killed in heaven, who could not be killed on earth, who could not be killed by human being nor by an animal. So who killed him in the end? It was Narasimha, that is an avatar of Lord Vishnu, who killed Hiranyakashipu, isn't it? In the same way, Achilles also could not be killed in any other way except if you shot him in his heel, and that happened and Achilles died. So there is a proverb in English, or there is an idiom in English which says Achilles' heel. So what is the meaning of Achilles' heel in English? It means a weakness in a person or a system which might cause them to fail. So everything else about the person or everything else about the system is very strong, but one part is weak, and because of that one part, the entire system could fail. Okay, let us look at an example of how Achilles' heel can be used in a sentence. So see, Achilles' heel actually means a person's weakness. So Achilles was a figure in Greek mythology who had no weakness except for his heel. So look at the example here. John is a great employee. That means he works very well, he's very hardworking, he's very sincere and everything else. His only Achilles' heel is that he's always late for work. So what is the point? Someone who's not punctual is of no use, because time is money, isn't it? So someone who always comes late, but he does his work well. The company will always prefer someone who comes on time and does his work rather than a person who never comes on time. Okay, so Achilles' heel is an idiom which has been derived from the story, and this is the meaning of it. It is a weakness of a person which is called as his Achilles' heel. Okay, now let's move on and let us see how Paris was also later on killed by a poisoned arrow. See, Paris, he is also lying on his deathbed because someone shot a poisoned arrow on him and he also met with his death. Okay, and then what happened we will see in the next part of the story. That is, we have to do the fall of Troy part 2 also later, isn't it? So let us stop the story here now.